All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to run through a little example here of the type of problem you'll definitely see on your test. I think this is one of the hardest ones. It uses a graphing calculator, it uses long division, and uses kind of the quadratic formula to solve some extra stuff. So as you're going through here, and you're looking at this problem, essentially what we're doing is we're trying to find all the zeros, right? Where we equal zero, where we intersect our x-axis, values that would make this true if I have a zero. So you can kind of think of this as zero. You can write it immediately if you want. So this is really, the f of x, remember, just kind of tells us a specific function. It's kind of like having a y there, and we're specifically figuring out where it's equal to zero. So you're going to start saying 0 equals x next plus 3x squared. So right away, we know a couple things. We eventually, if you look here, we should have 4 different solutions by the time we're done with this problem. I see x to the 4th is my highest exponent. We should expect to have 4 at the end, and we will get there eventually. That's important to think about right away. And I asked myself 2 questions. Can I divide all of the numbers by the same thing? If so, we can do it. And can I take an x out of all of these? We're not going to divide that x away, but we will want to make sure that we factor it out if we can. So first I say, can I divide these? And 13 and 3 do not have any common factors. And we're not able to divide by a number here. But what we can do is there's an x in all of these. We're going to factor out the x. We don't want to divide by x on both sides. Dividing by x is bad in general usually, because we run into some big issues with it. Because what if x is 0? You don't want to divide by 0. That gets kind of weird on us. Plus, it trivializes the problem a little bit. Either way, we can't treat it that way. We're going to factor these out. Say, hey, if I stole an x out of all of these, if I factored this x up front, what would I be left with? Well, I'd be left with 3x instead, and plus 13x squared instead of to the third, and then plus 3x instead of x squared minus 22. And that last one, x is gone on, and that makes sense, and that's what we were trying to do. Anyway, so that's good. So we can factor that x out, which is good because if then x equals 0 here, we're actually going to be able to just peel this straight away. And this is one of my 4 solutions right here, x equals 0, which is true. If I plugged in 0 even back at the top of my equation, if I plugged in 0, there's x's everywhere. 0 to the 4th power is 0 times 3 is 0. And for each chunk, it would be 0. And that would make 0 equals 0, and we'd have something true. All right, so that is one of my solutions. If we were to plug that in, it would work. And now we need to find the rest of these right here. So a lot of these we're going to kind of peel off. Here's one answer. Let's deal with the rest of it, right? So we just peeled that x off. 0 equals x is one of my solutions. We're done with it. We're just going to kind of remember it at the end and slap it back in there. Okay? So this section here, we can just say, well, what happens if I have 3x to the third plus 13x squared plus 3x? When does this equal 0? It's almost like a brand new problem, right? So now I should expect 3 more answers still, and we should be able to do these. Now, we could check and say, hey, can I factor by grouping? I see 4 terms in here. Maybe we could think about grouping. But if I did, there's nothing I could take out of 3 and 13 and then 3 and 22 in the back. It's not going to work. We can kind of visually see that pretty quick. So if we could factor by grouping, that would be a great way to finish this. But we can't in this problem, so that's okay. We won't. So what we can do is we can get out that calculator, right? We can use the graphing calculator to find a solution. Then we can use that solution to divide into this to find some easier stuff and make this easier. So I pulled this up already. This is going to look a little different than yours because it is on the it's on Desmos instead of. But either way, if you graphed this, so once again, if you graphed 3x to the third plus 13x squared plus 3x minus 22, it would look like this. There's a couple different things. What we're spotting for, what we're looking for is where does this hit my x-axis? Well, it hits it in a couple different spots. It hits it in these 3 different spots here. But if you look at 2 of these, 2 of them pretty obviously are not nice numbers. We don't actually want to use this. Right? This guy right here, that's like negative 3.48 or something like that, which if we're trying to divide that out, is not going to work very well. So make sure you pick one of your options that go right through your thing. Sometimes there will only be one number that it goes through on my x-axis, and sometimes you'll have more. So we do want to see, we don't want to use that one either because that's a little off, but this one right here, this -2, absolutely looks like it goes right through the entire equation, which is perfect. So we can use that -2 to divide away. Let's see how that works. So we know that -2 is a solution, and we actually know from this visual that we should have two other real solutions, which is a little nice, but they're not very nice, so we're probably going to have to use the quadratic formula for them. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I need to divide by -2. We're not going to switch the sign here. It's already kind of done that for us by being a factor. So we're going to divide by -2. We also get to say x equals -2. That is one of my solutions. We know that. Our calculator just told it to us. We know that this is one of our solutions, so that's a great way to find the second one. So now we're down to 2 that we still need to find. To do that, synthetic division, 3, 13, 3, -2. I grab all my coefficients from my green equation here. Remember, the first part we drop straight down, so we're going to drop 3 down. Then we do the left number, that -2, times whatever we have at the bottom. So we're going to multiply times -2. I can pause this in post. Oh, gotcha. Okay, no worries. If we take that outside value there and multiply it by the bottom, we'll get -6. 3 times -6, 3 times -2 is -6. Then we add down. So we drop the first one, we multiply, and then we add. 13 plus -6 is what? 4, 7, +7. Great. -2 times 7. So once again, we say times -2. That would be a -14. If I add these together, I get -11 down here. And -2 times -11 is a +22. I multiply this by -2 again. Times -2. If I multiply by -2, I get 22, which is great because now if I add these, I get 0, which needs to happen over time. So once again, to recap that, we drop that 3 straight down, and then we do the bottom times the left side, -2, to get -6, add, times by the left side, add, times by the left side, add. Okay. So boom, we should never have a reminder with these. So now the new equation, so we divided by that -2, which was a solution, and now the new piece that we need to solve for, we have 3x plus 7x minus 11. And now we have this new equation to solve for, and that's the one that we're going to go through now. So yes, these take a while because there's just a lot of things like layers to peel off, but each layer shouldn't be way hard or anything like that. We're just going to go layer by layer. So now we got to treat this guy. We know how to do this. We did a whole unit test on just solving quadratics. So we have things like factoring. I don't think this will factor since factors of 33, that had to be 7, not going to happen. Or we can use the quadratic formula or even sometimes square roots. But this time it's going to be quadratic formula. A3 is 7, C is 11. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 7 squared, times 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is -11, all over 2 times a, which is 3. Okay. When you get down to something like this, a lot of things can happen. You can get nice numbers, you can get decimals that are kind of gross from your square roots, you get imaginary answers that we kind of leave as imaginary answers. So from here, this is not going to be exactly the same every time. All the rest of the steps kind of work the exact same every time. This one, yeah, the steps are the same, but your answers will be a little different. But we do expect to have those two places where we intersected the x-axis, right? If we did this, we probably expect two real answers anyway. So they'll probably be decimals, but they will be real answers. So we'll find them quick. If you jump this into your calculator, should have done this beforehand. 7 squared minus 4 times 3 times -11. Don't forget your science. A lot of people forget -11. This is 7 minus the square root of 181 over 2 times 3, which is 6. Find your decimal. The square root of 181 is not very nice, but that's okay. If you type it into your calculator, we get 13.45. So this is one more time. 97 plus or minus 13.45 divided by 6. Well, fine. We can find two answers here. We can say, hey, here's one. -7 plus 13.45 divided by 6. It is important that you do the top. So this top section is kind of like has its own set of parentheses around it. If you just type it all into your calculator at once, it'll do the division first. So you need to do -7 plus 13.45, enter, and get 6.45, and then divide by 6. So we get 1.075. Or let's just say 0.08 because we're rounding. There's one answer. And do the same thing over here. Say, hey, wait a minute. What about when I do the minus? -7 minus 13.45 over 6. Well, -7 minus 13.45. -20.45 divided by 6. -3.4. -3.41. And this makes sense. Look at this. 1.08 and -3.41. -1.08, like just barely off -1.08 there, and then -3.41. That looks just shy of -3.5, so that makes sense. These are the actual answers. So remember, if you see them intersect the axis, you should probably have real answers there. Sometimes this whole thing will be like shifted up, so it doesn't actually intersect the axis anymore, and the solutions will be imaginary, which is great too. So that is kind of the biggest problem. So if we were finally doing this, our final answers for this whole problem, whoops, that extended a lot, are x equals -3.41. We had -2 from above, we had 0 from above, and we have 1.08. There are 4 different answers to this problem. It matches the 4 that we saw up here. We're not surprised to see 4. This was 4. We knew this was going to happen to start. Don't remember that these two, or excuse me, don't remember. Don't forget that these two are part of your answer. This is important. Okay. So that is a pretty big overview of like the hardest type of problem you'll see. Yes, it's almost like 4 mini problems in one where you got to do 4 different things to different parts of this. So just make sure you're going through and taking your time with that. I'll post a couple other videos and some of the other options that you may see. Please let me know if you have any questions or any of this was surprising or hard to follow. I'd love to get some feedback on video. So keep it up. Hopefully this helps.